And so our story begins.
Okay. Alright. How did I get here? I've always been the kind of guy to be fascinated, enamored, extremely excited to try and to really get into an MMO. I will say this isn't my first MMO experience. I and my little bro fell in love with Wizard 101. That was our first real MMO experience, and we loved every single little bit of it. I think part of the reason why I love Midnight Sun so much was because it kind of reminded me of Wizard 101. But anywho, over the years, I've tried getting into multiple different MMOs, but usually the thing that ends up booting me out of it is the combat's not fast-paced enough. There's so many things to do, so many little check marks. It's just so overwhelming. I was always fascinated and in love with the idea of getting into an MMO with my friends and just getting into it and having it be that one MMO that I come back to every couple of months or every, play for a couple times each year, to have that be my little part of the world that I get to keep coming back to and living it. And it just was never able to happen. And you guys, I am the biggest Elder Scrolls fan. Skyrim took over my life when it came out. I wasn't really able to get into ESO. Again, I was always fascinated by the idea of it, but I was never able to commit to it long enough. I think a big part of the reason why I had this issue of not being able to fully commit and get into an MMO is because every time I started one, I started with friends. And in the busy lives that we all have, and with me being an adult now, I guess, and most of the time we ended up falling out of it. And whenever we stopped playing with it together, I wouldn't really want to do it on my own. But oh man, Final Fantasy 14 was different. This game hit so different. And let me tell you something. Wait, let me tell you something. When I first started playing Final Fantasy 14 and I had to get the membership and I played it for the first couple hours, I was like, oh no. So a couple things that I did differently was I didn't start it with friends. So I was like, I'm just gonna start this by myself and I'm gonna play it for me and I'm gonna commit to it. I'm gonna play, I'm gonna give it a shot, and I'm gonna love it. So every single time I've tried starting Final Fantasy 14 or any MMO, I was really hyped to get into it. So there wasn't a lack of excitement going into this one either. But after playing it for like maybe 6-7 hours, I was like, I'm just not feeling it. I'm just not feeling it. That's the beauty. That's the beauty of Final Fantasy 14. After that first playing session, I was like, you know what? Let's give it another shot. Oh man, 130 hours later, yes, I can say I got hooked into Final Fantasy 14, and I'm so excited to get back to it. I already purchased all the expansions, so you guys already know how the story ends. Yes, I did end up getting addicted to Final Fantasy 14. And it was just my go-to game for a while. So what happened? What was the difference? What was the thing with this MMO that sucked me in that the other MMOs maybe didn't have or couldn't successfully do? One big thing is it's a Final Fantasy game, and anything Final Fantasy I kind of tend to drool for. So I would be lying if I said that didn't play a role in me sticking with it and really trying to get into it when I didn't initially get into it within the first hours. That's one part of it. But I think the second part of it was I didn't approach this game thinking I want to get to the most recent update as quick as possible and I gotta be the highest level and I want to be experiencing the latest content ASAP because what's currently out looks so cool and so good. And not to mention, everybody in the Final Fantasy 14 community will tell you that Realm Reborn, the base game of Final Fantasy 14, isn't the best story-wise, and that the later expansions it's when the story really gets good and everything really picks up. But that was the thing. I heeded the advice of many other YouTubers who had said, if you're gonna play this game, pay attention to the story and don't get burnt out with side quests. Fall in love with the little things, like truly just don't be afraid to explore the world, get immersed into it, and if you want to dilly-dally with a certain side feature that comes with this game, how to get a chocobo, customizing your chocobo, leveling up your chocobo, getting your chocobo some armor, or whether it be trying multiple different classes and leveling multiple different classes up, even though everywhere it tells you that you definitely probably shouldn't do that, but if you want to, go for it. Doing a good amount of side quests, really just taking my time to be immersed into this world. And I beat it. I beat the main game. I beat the base game, A Realm Reborn. So this review is specifically focused on A Realm Reborn with a lot of the other aspects that surround Final Fantasy XIV. What is it about Final Fantasy XIV that drives so many people so crazy about this game? There's a lot of things. I personally really absolutely love the fact that I could change classes whenever I wanted. Or you know, even like at the beginning, you start off with a class, and I wanted to continue to progress through the game to get to the point where I could change my class. After I got to a certain level of one class, I was like, there's this other class I really want to try. So then I would play up to the point so I could unlock the next class, and then I would just progressively keep playing with multiple different classes until I honestly I was forced to have to choose to really maintain and stick with 2 classes to beat the game and max, quote unquote, reach that first level cap of level 50. The main source of experience that you're gonna get from this game are, yes, like the dungeons and stuff, but mostly it's from the main quests, like the main scenario quests. Like that's where you're gonna get a bulk of your experience, and that is how you're going to level up your character and that class to level 50. And yeah, I'd say like, but to beat the game and not be like super struggling, like you want to end up at around level 50. And yeah, I was able to get 2 classes up to level 50. The Dragoon, just because I've always loved Dragoons. I started off as a Lancer, then the Dragoon. The Healer, the White Mage. I think I started off as I don't remember, but I became a White Mage. And yeah, I think part of the thing that made the journey so exciting was by just doing main story quests, you can juggle up to from like around 4 to 5 different classes, doing the main storyline and just switching between the 4 of them as you please, up until around level 30-ish, 34-ish, 35-ish. I think once I got all 4 of my classes that I was balancing and jumping and back and forth between to level 35, 36, that's when I was getting to the next part of the main story quest where I was like, I can't keep dividing out this main story quest experience into all these different classes. I had to dwindle my list. You know, I basically had to cut it in half, which is still cool. I didn't have to dwindle it to 1. I was able to juggle the main story quests, jumping back and forth between 2 different classes, got them both to level 50 by the time I beat the main game in A Realm Reborn. And on top of that, I got 2 to 3 other classes up to level 30 something. So I'm already not too far away from getting those to 52, so that's also really fun. Again, part of the thing that made this game so exciting too, with me and enjoying all the classes, is all the different biomes, the different environments, the different areas of Final Fantasy XIV. Each little part of this world feels so different, and the leader of each part of this world, it's just so freaking cool. I personally started in Limsa Lominsa. I still remember the name, and I loved it. I remember like comparing all the biomes, like all of them are really cool. But Limsa Lominsa was my favorite one because I love water. I'm a sucker for anything, you know, the beach, any large bodies of water in nature. Like I'm just so about it. And I love the whole pirate theme that came along with Limsa Lominsa. So I wanted to start there. I think I started as like just like a regular warrior, you know, like had a shield and a sword. And then I remember once I got, you know, level 10-ish, 12-ish, I was like, wait, this is really cool. What other classes can I get? And then I saw that I could get a Lancer that could eventually turn into the Dragoon. And the Dragoon is my favorite class in all of Final Fantasy. I'm talking like a Dragoon with like the really cool armor. Final Fantasy XIV allowed me to be a Dragoon, and you bet your sweet cheeks I was gonna try and get that class. But then I realized, oh, for me to become a Dragoon and become a Lancer, I need to make it to this other part of the world, which was like the very foresty green area. I don't remember the name. I then was very encouraged to continue to take my time with the main story, enjoy it, but yet also I had this goal in mind to get to the part where I can unlock getting to the different areas in these different cities so that I can then unlock the Dragoon. So then once I finally got to that point of like, oh, I can now leave Limsa Lominsa and explore these other 2 biomes, like these other 2 cities, I was so excited. And I got there, and then I got to start in Dragoon, and so there was this whole new level of hype when I got to this new place. Not just because it was different, but because I got to start like working on a new class that I really wanted to look forward to. And not to mention just that, I now had access to all the classes. I think that's something that always kept my fire or my fuel going. There's so many things throughout the entirety of Final Fantasy A Realm Reborn, all the way up to level 50 that you unlock in terms of game content, right? Like getting to unlock my Chocobo, and your Chocobo essentially becomes like your companion, your follower. And you can level them up, and you can like customize them, and there's like a whole Chocobo world you can invest into, which is super cool. You also have your little minions which you can collect, which are kind of like Pokemon. They don't really help you in fighting at all, but it's just still another cool little thing to connect. to collect. There's so many cosmetics you can get. Like, there's just so many little things that can get you sucked into this world by also completing like certain daily things and weekly things. But I think the biggest thing was, especially when playing through Reborn, there was always like another big thing that I wanted to unlock, that I was looking forward to. If it wasn't unlocking all the different classes, it was, okay, now I want to unlock the chocobo. And if it wasn't unlocking the chocobo, oh, now I want to unlock flying. And if it wasn't like there was always a thing that I was like, oh, I'm pretty close to unlocking this next new thing. So, I mean, maybe that's something that I would recommend too. If you want to play the whole thing blind and don't want any spoilers, that's fine too. But if you feel like you need that kind of little bit of inspiration and motivation to keep going through this game, look up a little list as to like what are some of the unlockables that you're gonna get as you continue to progress the main story.
Let me just say, a part of the Final Fantasy 14 community, like a big part of it, a lot of people are in it for the cosmetics and making their character look a certain way and getting certain outfits from, and as they call it, the Glamour, right? The Glamour system. I ended up falling into this. I cared about how my character looked. I really liked creating different outfits for my character, especially depending on each class, like depending on the class that I had at the time. I love the fact that I was able to get my freaking favorite Final Fantasy character. I got Titus's outfit on my character, which is so freaking sick. And yes, I said Titus. Now, something else that I think is great about this game is it's definitely not pay to win. At least from my experience, to be fair, I didn't really go searching for it, but I never felt like I needed to invest money into this game other than the subscription to really be able to progress or advance or be at the very top of the best of the best. Maybe there is something you can do to spend money and progress in this game, but I never felt the need to. Now, I did spend some money on cosmetics. I literally just purchased a single outfit, which was Titus's outfit, which is freaking amazing. But that's really the only thing that I spent money on, and it was because I wanted to. I didn't feel like I had to. I didn't feel like any sort of thing. If anything, like I saw someone else wearing it, and I was like, I want that. And I don't even care. I was like, I don't even care how much it costs. I want it. Again, I think most of the things that you can spend money on this game is cosmetics, which is great. Never feel pressure to. I don't think there's already more than enough cosmetics in this game to make it fun without needing to spend money. I just want to throw that in there. I don't think Final Fantasy 14 is, predatory in that kind of way that it makes you want to spend more money on it than what you already have for the subscription.
As you're doing all these things and you have all these little goals, and if you're paying attention to the story, if you're paying attention to the characters, if you're just allowing yourself to get sucked into this world and see what is Final Fantasy 14 all about, you're gonna find that it is really enjoyable, fun experience. Like I remember one specific part with the story that happened. I was like, whoa, this is getting kind of real. I'm kind of invested. And even though at no point was I like, wow, this story is amazing, it was super enjoyable. And it added to just my overall experience of being in this world. So now, what's it like actually playing this game with other people? I wouldn't know. Really, kind of, technically. I kind of played this game a little bit with my brother, like I'm talking like one gaming session, maybe two, so I didn't really get to play this with anyone. But that's the great thing about Final Fantasy 14. It's an MMO that you can technically solo the entire thing, because I basically soloed it. There's a little caveat to when I say soloing it. Whenever I did have to do a dungeon and to progress the story, I did do it with random other players. When you're doing these dungeons, you get placed into a specific role depending on the character class that you have. So you're either a healer, you're the person that does damage, you're a tank, you're the person who receives the damage. This is like a whole thing, and if you just kind of go into a dungeon blind without really paying attention to your role or knowing what you're supposed to do, in the beginning dungeons it's not too big of a deal, but especially when you get into the later game dungeons of just the base game, like your role matters, and if you're not doing what you're supposed to do in your role, you can really screw up the whole dungeon and honestly screw up all the other players who are there with you. I never really felt that level of pressure because as I was playing through the game, I was taking my time doing all the quests I was supposed to do. The game does have a really great tutorial that explains really well what you're supposed to do based off of the class that you are. Content's there for you to learn how to do it properly, and I would recommend that you do it for the later game. So here's another thing. I took the time to learn my role and again, even though I had a variety of classes to choose from, I noticed, okay, when I play and I do a dungeon as my DPS, there's a super long waiting line for me to actually begin the quest. So, but every time I did it as a healer, I instantly got picked up as a healer. Or sometimes if I was a tank, I instantly got picked up as a tank. So that did kind of influence a little bit my decision as to why I chose to get my healer all the way to level 50. And I love the Dragoon, so the Dragoon was more of a, I'll do some quests with him, but I don't need him to progress the main story, because if I'm trying to do a specific dungeon to progress the main story, I'll just do it with my healer first. The roles do matter though, and I think playing with randos and having the chat there, like, it's as great as everyone says. For the most part, everyone is super friendly, everyone's super nice, everyone's really chill and there to have fun and there to help explain the game to you and kind of help you out with what to do. When I even joined a random guild, I would have like my little guild chat pulled up, and people would always greet me in my guild like, hey, how are you doing today? Hey, I'm doing great. And like, because I was writing on my PlayStation, right? Because I played some PS5. It was always harder for me to type and took me longer, but we made it work. Yeah, I did a little bit of small chit chat, but it was just nice. It was just nice that I felt like people cared about me being a part of the guild and being a part of this like little family. So that was really cool. An oof to this game being, I guess, so old and you being put into these dungeons with people who've played the game a lot before. A lot of the beginning dungeons, and even some of the later ones too, to be honest, in A Realm Reborn, most of the team just blasts through it and they know exactly what they're doing, and you just kind of feel like you're following along, and you don't really know what's happening. They're doing certain things in these dungeons to progress, and you're just kind of like, what's happening? And you can sit there and kind of read a little bit and try to follow along as to what you're supposed to do, but eventually you just kind of get used to, okay, each time I go into a dungeon, I'm just gonna kind of follow everyone's lead and stick to my role. This worked out for me at the beginning. It was fine, and I was still having fun, but I was also like, there's really no challenge to these dungeons, because everyone just kind of keeps blasting through it for me. I mean, the rewards were cool though. There was still incentive. The experience was nice, and random loot system that they had for getting good items or good gear for your character. That was pretty fun. But in terms of like actually having to struggle with the dungeons, it wasn't until I got to the later part of the game where I was doing higher level dungeons once or twice, and I just did what I always did. I just kind of followed on, played my role, and followed everyone else, and that was just kind of it. Blasted through it twice, got a nice. It wasn't until like my fourth time doing that dungeon where there were 4 of us that didn't really know what we were doing. So I think we were all we were just the people who usually got carried through the dungeons, and even though we all had different roles and we were all like pretty alright at doing what we were supposed to do, because we didn't know how to progress, we kept dying. And we did eventually figure it out as a team, but I remember being like, oh crap, like if I don't pay attention, if I don't figure out what to do here, we're just kind of wasting our time here. We're wasting everyone's time, because you don't want to be that sheep like myself that gets in a group with all these other sheep, and then we're all just kind of like looking at each other like, what do we do, you know? Nah, man, but Final Fantasy 14 was such an amazing experience. In terms of story, like I said, it's not necessarily a story that you're gonna instantly find yourself sucked into like The Last of Us. I always use this as an example, but it's an enjoyable story, and you do have to kind of stick it out and let yourself get immersed. To then, but the part that's not as hard is you do end up falling in love with these characters, like these different characters who play alongside. You do end up getting sucked in. But there has to be some effort on your part to say, I want to try and get into this story and into this world, and it just adds to your overall experience. So you might as well do it.
Another really quick thing to add here was how much I really loved the characters in this game, like the main characters. Like obviously there's a butt ton of characters in this game, but the characters who really get a spotlight, the people who are part of this team that you're working with, they're all so cool. They're all great. Oh, and most of A Realm Reborn, like literally 90% of it is not voice acted. I know in the later expansions you get voice acting, but at least for this A Realm Reborn, barely any cutscenes are voice acted. And when they are, when you get to see one of those cutscenes, it's such a treat. It's just so nice. But yeah, I kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit. Like I really loved the characters in this game, and dude, I know it's a Final Fantasy game, and I probably don't even need to say this, but the music absolutely slaps. I freaking love the music. So, yes, even though the story, quote unquote, isn't as enjoyable, it's totally enjoyable enough because you will fall in love with these characters. They're classic FF goodness.
Gameplay. Is it fast paced? Is it slow paced? Is it somewhere in the middle? Have you ever played Xenoblade? I've played the first one a little bit, and I would say it's kind of like Xenoblade, where it's like it is action-ish. It's not turn-based. It's just kind of somewhere in between, and the class that you pick also does play a role as to how fast-paced it might feel. I remember having like 5 to 6 different classes that I was juggling at a time, and each one of them felt so different and so fun. Each class really has their own little gimmick, which you have to kind of spend time into learning and investing in and seeing how you're gonna play as them. That was part of the fun for me. But the gameplay is super fun. I did eventually like get into it and understand, oh, once I got to one of those first hard dungeons where like I had to like get good as a tank or get good as a healer, I was like, oh, yeah, this is tough, and I gotta be on top of it. I gotta be on top of like healing my people, reviving my people, and just like being ready for anything that comes at me while keeping myself alive. It was a really fun experience.
Okay, can we also, like, just piggybacking off of the community talk, this was so cool. This is so special, and let me share with you a little part of this community. So Limsa Lominsa, I'm like in the main hub area here, and it's always just crazy hecticness, a bunch of people, you know, walking around, hanging out, doing their thing. And I left my game going. I went to go get some, like, a snack from the fridge or something. And then when I come back, I suddenly hear the theme to Attack on Titan, and I'm like, what? And I see these different players from the game, with all of them with instruments, having a little mini concert, playing AOT, like the AOT theme. And they all kind of had like AOT themed outfits, which was so freaking cool. Like, come on, man. And what other game do you see this just randomly? I don't think it was like a big special event either. It was just like I randomly just happened to stop by at the right time, and a group of players just wanted to put on this concert, and like I was like, this is so cool. And then they played the One Piece theme, which was also so great, and I was jamming along and vibing to it. Oh my gosh, I'm definitely like gonna try to play some audio. I shouldn't get copyright struck, because you can clearly tell that these are people actually playing instruments in the game. Yeah, enjoy this. So yeah, that was so freaking cool. Like, the Final Fantasy 14 community is amazing.
So yeah, that pretty much does it for my Final Fantasy 14 experience. I did kind of jump the gun and play this game earlier than I should have. As you guys know, I'm kind of following this list of playing Final Fantasies 1 through 16 now in order. And when it comes to the older games, I just recently finished Final Fantasy 7 and then beat the remake, and then I'm gonna wait on Rebirth because I'm kind of burnt out from playing the remake as much as I did, but I'm super excited for it. But Final Fantasy 14, I know that that's a game that I'm gonna kind of keep coming back to as the years goes on, and I'm gonna kind of keep coming back to and playing the new expansions to see if I can get caught up to the newest expansion. So that's why I kind of like beat that now, and I think that makes sense. So the next Final Fantasy game to play and beat for me, if you're following along, is actually Final Fantasy 8. So we're getting there, But my goodness, Final Fantasy 14 is awesome. I've been like really in the mood to get back into it and play it, but I chose to play a couple other games, so I'm not quite ready to jump back into it, but I will be soon. Yeah, anyways, that pretty much does it for my Final Fantasy 14 review. Hopefully you guys had a good time. I don't really have a little figurine to open here, just because this is a little bit of a different entry. And yeah, don't ask me about Final Fantasy 12. We're not gonna talk about that quite yet. I love video games, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Your comments and your likes and everything that you guys do and your subscriptions, like, that's another huge reason why I do this. It really does continue to drive me to keep going. So thank you guys.